Today's topic, Austria. So my home country where I'm coming from. Austria, the wines of Austria, there is one very good source where you can have a look on. It's the Austrian Wine Marketing Board. It's the homepage of the Austrian Wine Marketing Board to get all the information you need about Austria. Austria lies in the middle of the Central Europe, is a quite traditional wine growing region. And if you have a deeper look on Austria, there are the Alps on the west side, and there's flat on the east side, so to say. But mainly the east side of Austria is the wine growing area. It does not mean that in Tyrol or Vorarlberg there is no wine growing. There is, of course. Yeah, we've got one designation called Burgenland, and there we cover all this Salzburg, Carinthia, Upper Austria, Oberösterreich, Tyrol, Vorarlberg included there. But the main areas for wine growing in Austria are on the east side, so it's Niederösterreich or Lower Austria, it's Styria, it's Burgenland, and the capital Vienna. One and only, or maybe two if I take Santiago de Chile into consideration as well, one of the two capitals having a decent wine growing area as well. So, having a closer look on the Austrian wine regions, as said, we are focusing on Niederösterreich, Lower Austria, Styria, Steiermark, Burgenland, and Vienna. They split up in different sub-regions, and the sub-regions are today designated to a so-called DAC system, Districtus Austria Controllatus, 17 plus 1, it's mentioned on this slide. The plus 1 means the Ruster Ausbruch DAC, which is a wine style of a certain city within the Leiterberg DAC region. But start from the beginning. Located in Central Europe, almost all growing in the east, as said before. The other region is called Burgenland. We are talking about indigenous grape varieties, and they are the most important ones. So just to name it in the very beginning, it's Grüner Veltliner on the white side, and it's Zweigelt and Blaufränkisch on the red side. We've got very flat land in the region of Neusiedler See, and we've got very steep sides in the region of Styria, for example, and in some parts of Lower Austria. As said, we have the DAC system. In 2003, the first DAC, Weinviertel DAC, has been established. Today, we're counting 18 DACs. What's another thing which is important to Austria? Botrytis. You know, this is this noble rot, being responsible for the sweet wine production, for the noble sweet wine production. In our case, they are called Beerenauslese and Trockenbeerenauslese. For quality wine production, the Austrian wine law is defining 40 different varieties, 26 white, 14 red. 2/3 of the production in Austria is white wine. Import and export is on par, so we are roughly exporting 25% of our production, and we are importing 25% of our consumption. So we are on an equal par in there, because consumption and production is on the same level as well. And the average per capita consumption is 27 liter per year. Now, just thinking back in the 90s, so back in 95, for example, the average used to be about 40 liters. And back in 1950, the average used to be about 65 liters. So the average per capita consumption is going down year on year. Key facts on Austria, we're talking roughly about 45,000 hectares. We are quite north, latitude-wise, for 46, up to 49 latitude. The altitude of our vineyards from 100 meters up to 800 meters. Average temperature 17.5 degrees of Celsius. This is just about fine. Weinviertel being the coldest or coolest region, wine growing region in Austria. Rain rates from 350 on the Lake of Neusiedl up to 1,000 or even 1,500 millimeters sometimes in Styria. If you get some wet air from the south, from Italy. The month of harvest typically September, but it spreads, of course, from August, mid of August, until end of October, beginning of November. The main issues on diseases is powdery and downy mildew, and we do about 2.4 million hectoliters of production. Main varieties, as said on the white side, Grüne Veltliner, Welsch Riesling, Chardonnay, Pinot Blanc is there, and on the red side it's Blaufränkisch, or it's actually Zweigelt being the number one, Blaufränkisch, and then we've got some Blauer Portugiese, for example, Blauburgunder, Pinot Noir is there, and some other interesting PV varieties. The most important wine regions, and I don't want to go through all these wine regions, I just name the, let's say, the most important ones, or the ones where we can then really relate the other ones in comparison to it. Yeah. In general, we split into 17 sub-areas. Yeah, and the basic sub-areas are Niederösterreich, Burgenland, and Steiermark or Styria. Within Niederösterreich, we've got the sub-regions Wachau, Kamptal, Kremstal, Dreisental, Wagram, Weinviertel, Carnuntum, and Thermenregion. So Wachau, Kamptal, Kremstal, Dreisental, they are all close to each other. Around, I would say, around the city of Krems, to the west, to the north, to the south. To the east, there is the region called Wagram, to the east of Krems. The Weinviertel is a region, the biggest region in Austria, to the north of Vienna. A lot of basic wine for sparkling wine production is coming from there. And Carnuntum is to the east of Vienna, towards the border of Slovakia and Hungary. And the Thermenregion is just south of Vienna, towards Wiener Neustadt. Then we've got Burgenland with the regions of Neusiedler See, Leiterberg, Mittelburgenland, Rosalia and Eisenberg. Styria or Steiermark with Vulkanland Steiermark, used to be Südoststeiermark, Südsteiermark and Weststeiermark. And finally, Vienna as the capital on its own, having a good wine production there as well, mainly in the north of Vienna, the hills of Leopoldsberg and Bisamberg and so on. Yeah. This figure, this slide, just have a look on it to see the distribution and the size and the number of wine growers in the respective sub-regions within the bigger regions of Burgenland, Niederösterreich, Steiermark and Vienna. And it shows you exactly what I said before. The Weinviertel is by far the biggest region on the left lower side of this table, showing the amount of hectares and wine growers. The number of wine growers might be interesting. The last 20-25 years, this number is now going to half of it. So we used to have double the amount of wine growers. A lot of small wineries, maybe not wineries, but wine growers, so grape producers, they stopped their production and they sold the vineyards to bigger houses. But this is a trend normally ongoing throughout Europe. So as an example, really just as an example, I would like to highlight a couple of regions. One of them being the Wachau. The region of Wachau, about 1,300 hectares roughly. It goes along the valley of the river Danube. The climate is influenced by the Danube, of course. From the western side, still a little bit of Atlantic climate, a wet and cool air is coming from the western side, and from the eastern side, the Pannonian climate, so warm climate, drier climate, is coming from the eastern side via the valley of the Danube. The soil, weathered primary rock, terraces built up in the Wachau region. You for sure know the 1000 Eimerberg or the Singerriedl or Achleiten, which are famous names for single vineyards. They are all in terraces. Löss and alluvial, more down to the Danube side. And the schist and And yeah, granite is very, very important, giving a specific style, this minerality to the wines, especially to the white wines. Main varieties are Grüner Veltliner and Riesling. What's special on Wachau, as an example, is the Vinea Wachau Nobilis Districtus. So this is this, you're for sure aware of these three categories: Steinfeder, Federspiel, and Smaragd. So this organization, this organization is defining certain quality parameters for their wines, even before the wine law was made in 1986 after the wine scandal in Austria. The Steinfeder is the, let's say, the really, really lean wine with a lot of freshness, high acidity, lower level of color inside. The Federspiel is the normal wine for having it together with a meal, for example. In former times we called it cabinet wines, 12.5 ABV, alcohol, for example, typical varietal flavors, a little bit more denser body than the Steinfeder, of course. And the Smaragd is the high end, the top end of the wine categories, showing a lot of potential for aging, of course, deeper color and depth and high level of quality. On top of this Vinea Wachau organization, we've got the Wachau DAC. And in this DAC, we define a classical pyramid as we know it from other regions like Germany with the VDP or even the Burgundy. Yeah, so we define a Wachau level of wines where the grapes can come from the whole Wachau region and a wide spectrum of grape varieties. Then narrowing it down to the village category of wines, where we narrow down the number of varieties as well, allowed for this, up to the single vineyard wineries, where we just define a couple of varieties. Of course, Grüner Veltliner and Riesling is part of it, yeah. But not all the varieties which are allowed on the basic layer are allowed on the upper layer as well. And on top, like a matrix, we've got the Steinfeder, Federspiel, and Smaragd in the Wachau as well. So this is something really, really specific. A second example, just close to the Wachau, it's the Kamptal for me. It's about 3,500 hectares. Again, it's the valley, the river of Kamp, and a lot of wine growing areas are named about rivers just beside it or part of it, of course. The climate is cool continental, having as well some Pannonian influence. The soil type is Löss loam primary rock. This is specific for the Zöbiger Heiligenstein, which is the the best known single vineyard in this area. And the main varieties are Grüner Veltliner and Riesling, like in the Wachau region. And here as well, on the picture you see the Zöbiger Heiligenstein. And here as well, we've got the Kamptal DAC based on regional wine, village wine, and cru wine or single vineyard wine. The very same system as in the Wachau before. The basis, the regional wine, quite wide in terms of varieties, going to nominated, let's call it nominated varieties, up in the cru level, in the single vineyard level, with Grüner Veltliner and Riesling being on the top of this pyramid for the best wines from the region, of course. And then other regions in Lower Austria, Kremstal, Dreisental, Wagram and Carnuntum. I can show you here in a nutshell. It's the same principle again. The DAC is based on a pyramid. Yeah? So we have the top tier, Grüner Veltliner and Riesling, going to the village level and going down to the regional level. The very same principle. The only exception you see in Wagram DAC, they have added their typical Rota Veltliner. This variety is very well known for this region. And to make it really easy in terms of soil types, and in terms of climate, the more east you go, the more Löss you're going to have. And the more east you go, the warmer, hotter and drier it's going to be. The Carnuntum DAC, a little bit different because their red wine becomes more important compared to the other regions in the Niederösterreich area. with Zweigelt and Blaufränkisch, of course. This is included in the DAC regulations. And Weinviertel DAC is a kind of standalone DAC, which used to be still the very first DAC we got in Austria back in 2003. There we have a generic level, Weinviertel DAC. Then we have a reserve level, Weinviertel DAC Reserve. And we have a Große Reserve, Weinviertel DAC Große Reserve. So the quality of the wine goes up, the usage of oak goes up, but still it's about the variety Grüner Veltliner altogether. And Thermenregion, wait a couple of months and you will see there's something coming up as well. Most likely a pyramid like the other ones in Lower Austria. Jumping to Burgenland. The biggest region in Burgenland, with about 6,000 hectares, is the region Neusiedler See. The climate is purely Pannonian, so it's a hot climate, a dry climate. The soil is based on loam, black sand, black soil, sand, gravel, so quite fruity wines with a little bit more pushy in the back. Main varieties are Zweigelt, red wine variety. Zweigelt is an indigenous Austrian grape variety, a cross between Blaufränkisch and St. Laurent, dating back to 1922 by Mr. Zweigelt, Herr Professor Zweigelt in Klosterneuburg, a wine school, famous wine school in Austria. And the second one is Welsh Riesling, quite important for this region, a white wine, ancient white wine variety dating back to 1700 something, and not only for the dry wine, but especially for the sweet wines. So a lot of Botrytis, noble rot sweet wines, Trockenbeerenauslese, Beerenauslese are based on Welsh Riesling in this region. Neusiedler See DAC is based on Zweigelt. Here we still got the classic and the reserve category. New since a couple of years, it's a sweet category on Neusiedler See DAC. There we define the fruity sweet style, so without Botrytis, and the noble sweet style, so with Botrytis. And Botrytis cinerea, this is the Latin name for this noble rot, is one of the most important things there. And still up to now, every year possible to produce Botrytis cinerea as a wine there. The other regions in Burgenland, the Leiterberg DAC, the Mittelburgenland DAC and the Eisenberg DAC on the red side are all based on Blaufränkisch. They've got a generic level and a reserve and or cru level. Then there's one white DAC, so it's again the Leiterberg DAC. So with Leiterberg DAC, you've got a red DAC and a white DAC. The white DAC can be made out of Grüner Veltliner, Chardonnay, Pinot Blanc or Neuburger. And it can be a single varietal wine, it can be a blend out of those. And then there's a specific Botrytis sweet DAC, as mentioned in the very beginning, the Ruster Ausbruch DAC. There are all white grapes allowed to be used for the Ruster Ausbruch DAC, but just coming from the city of Rust, and actually according to the wine law, it would be a Trockenbeerenauslese from the category, but due to some historical elements, the Ruster are allowed to call it Ruster Ausbruch as a tradition, the DAC. In Styria, the most famous one, of course, is Südsteiermark, with about 2,800 hectares. We go more south. We got more influence from the Italian side. We call it Illyric climate there, so more wet, more cool. Although there's Mediterranean and Pannonian influence still existing. The soil type, primary rock, chalk, marl, slate, sand, freshness. Freshness is key. Fruitiness is key on the wines. This is supported by the soil types. The main varieties, Chardonnay, called Morillon, Sauvignon Blanc, Welsh Riesling, Gelber Muscatella. If I would name a red one here, it would be Zweigelt, of course. Yeah? The Südsteiermark DAC is based on the pyramid again. So we've got a regional wine, a village wine, and a single vineyard wine, a cru wine. On the picture, by the way, you see a traditional klapotec, that's the name for this. I wouldn't call it a windmill, but it's something like this. It was former times used for against the birds, because when the wind was coming and the wheel was turning around, it was making a lot of noise, and the birds were flying away. Today the birds are used to it, they're just sitting on it even when it's turning around. So that's how it is. The rest of Styria, Burgenland DAC, Südsteiermark DAC, they are built up the same way with pyramids, like generic level, village level and cru level. The speciality in the Südsteiermark DAC is the Schilcher. It's a rosé with a very, very racy acidity. And last but not least, Vienna, our capital, about 570 hectares, Pannonian climate, continental influence climate is there as well. As said, most of the vineyards are located in the north of Vienna, where we've got gravel soil, slate, loam and löss, especially löss soils there. Main varieties, Grüner Veltliner, Riesling, Pinot Blanc, Chardonnay and gemischter Satz. Gemischter Satz is no variety. It's the German word for field blend, and this is out of tradition that the Viennese vineyards were planted as gemischter Satz, as field blend. So there was a Grüner Veltliner wine beside a Riesling wine, beside a Pinot Blanc wine, beside a Traminer, beside a Muscat wine, whatever. Everything harvested together, everything vinified together. So this is the traditional gemischter Satz from Vienna. And as this is the traditional gemischter Satz, it's a DAC. Yeah, it's a field blend. At least 3 different varieties have to be part of this white wine, and it gives a generic level and the reserve level right now on Viennese gemischter Satz DAC. Climate, yeah, we said it already, general continental climate, cool winters. We are still considered to be a cool climate area. In the east, Pannonian influence. In the south, Illyric influence. This is the higher rain rate we've got here. The Danube acts as a regulator. The Neusiedler See supports the botrytis. And the swing, the diurnal swing on the daily base, especially in the region of Wachau, Kamptal, Krems and Reisental, is quite big to support the fruitiness of the wine, the freshness of the wine, to keep the acidity in the grapes, to make really nice, balanced wines. Plenty of different soils. We named it already. Löss, alluvial, sand, gravel, schist, slate, primary rock. Everything is there depending on the region. Viticulture. Mainly all of the wines are trained as trellis system, so a wired system. We've got the comparable high organic and biodynamic treatments. Some regions rarely solely rely on hand harvest. So they even have it in their DAC definitions that only hand harvest is allowed. Yeah? Then about 6,000 wines per hectare. Botrytis is a topic, as well as disease. It can be a bad thing if it's too early, of course. Spring frosts and hailstorms. History, there's a lot of history. I don't want to run through all these bullets here, but just to name the important ones. 1526, the first botrytis wine was done. It's called Luther wine. So at this time, it's at least documented. We've got a sweet wine based on botrytis. 1784, Heurigen directives from Joseph II. So, you know, we have the tradition of Heurigen, Buschenschank here in Austria, where I can go and eat local food, local produced wine. This is dating back to 1784. We've got 1985, the wine scandal, which caused the wine revolution in a positive sense to Austria. We got the new wine law. 2003, the first DAC, the Weinviertel DAC, was created, and then it was followed by 2005 Mittelburgenland, and so on, others to come later on. Grape varieties. I just copied here the table of the statistics from the Austrian Wine Marketing Board. You can see Grüner Veltliner, by far the number 1 here in Austria. The number 2 is Zweigelt, the red grape variety in Austria. This is planted overall in Austria. Welsh Riesling, important variety on the white side as well, planted almost everywhere, especially in Burgenland and Styria region. And the other one is Blaufränkisch. this grape variety is mostly planted in Burgenland and a little bit in Carnuntum area. So it needs warmer sites because it's a late ripening variety. White grape, Grüner Veltliner, can yield quite high. So it needs a little bit of regulation in yields, but delivers spicy, fruity wines with moderate acidity. On the red side, Zweigl, it's the round and charming and nicely drinkable glass of red wine, in contrast to Blaufränkisch, where we've got more tannins, more acidity, a little bit more robust wines. And of course, we do grow international varieties as well, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and so on, Pinot Noir. The one mentioned here, Blauer Wildbacher, this is a red grape variety which is used for the Schilcher from Weststeiermark. So this is the rosé wine coming from this. Wine styles, of course, we do have the DAC wines in Austria, which is mainly Grüner Veltliner and Riesling on the top end of the pyramids, yeah, but basic wines as well. We've got Alte Reben, as mentioned on the label, but there's no definition what Alte Reben means, how old is old. Yeah? We've got Reserve and Grosse Reserve, just by definition, how long it has to stay in the cellar before coming onto the market. Generally said, most of the Austrian wines are fruit-driven and best drunk within 2, 3, 4, 5 years. That's it. Some oak-aged wines, mainly in French barriques, reds, occasionally white wines as well, especially with the Burgundian varieties like Chardonnay, Pinot Blanc, and Pinot Gris. Wines to be drunk young, and of course we do have wines which can age quite well. Not only reds, Blaufränkisch and Zweigl can go up to 30, 40, 50 years if they're really good, but Smaragd level wines or high complex reserve level wines, they can age based on Grüner Veltliner or Riesling for 50 years as well, in the best cases, of course. Vinification, hygiene is key. Stainless steel is just normal. Temperature controlled fermentation as well. Malolactic fermentation and brick aging since the beginning of the 90s. Lees aging becoming even more common and more important to give the wines a little bit more structure, a little bit more body in a sense, or texture, is a better word for it. The trend for some wines now being a little bit more reductive and skin contact, especially for the aromatic grape varieties. Specific wine terms, we've got the Austrian wine law, which is based on either geographical indications or the DAC definitions. So this is a twofold wine law we've got here. In the segment of the wine with geographical indication of the Qualitätswein, we've got a specific qualification called Prädikatswein. Those are wines which are harvested specifically, like a late harvest or a ice wine or a botrytis wine, for example. And we go up the ladder of quality wine to Kabinett, Spätlese, Auslese, Bernauslese, Trockenbernauslese, for example. So this is meant with this Austrian wine law. What is important? We are a small country. We produce less than 1% of the world production. About 25% is exported, and they just want to focus here on the logo on the right-hand side. You see the red, white, red, which represents the flag of Austria. If you see this on the capsule of a wine, you know it's Austrian quality wine. So it's the quality ladder going from quality up to Trockenbernauslese. It's a DAC wine behind it. There's a judging behind this wine, from a sensorical judging as well as an analytic judging, if everything is fine. So you can be guaranteed that this is really, really good quality. And one thing in terms of economy, which is really important, still a cellar door sale is very, very important in Austria. Yeah. And if you're interested in more, then the brochure Austrian Wine in Depth from the Austrian Wine Marketing Board, just download and have a run through. You'll find everything what I just mentioned here. Leading producers, there are a lot of leading producers. I try to put some from everywhere, but it's not possible, like Bründelmeier, FX Bichler, Bründelmeier Kamptal, FX Bichler Wachau, Domäne Wachau, the the biggest or one of the biggest cooperatives on the quality wine segment. They're working really high on quality. Kolvens from Burgenland, Gesellmann from Mittelburgenland, Skoff from the Styria region, South Styria region, Stement, Lackner-Tinacher, very same, South Styria region, Wieninger from Vienna coming. So there's a lot of names really leading, and they're missing at least 10 times more on this could be added. The wine label, according to the European law, all the necessary things are put there, like alcohol levels, like sugar level, it's a dry wine, whatever. Vintage and variety is put on the label as well, as we are a variety-oriented country. However, it's not mandatory. You don't have to. If you do, then at least 85% of this has to be in the bottle. Okay, this was in a nutshell about Austria. Quite a quick run through, but I hope you got the ingredients and what it's all about. Austria, white wine country, 2/3, except the Burgenland, the red wine country. Indigenous grape varieties, less than 1% of world production, but for sure something to deserve and something to find the spots of the best wines ever. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.